Let's analyze together NVDA Corporation, but before that guys, remember to read the disclaimer right here, and also to subscribe to Trading ST to watch more content like this, and also we read all your comments about your favorite stocks. So first of all guys, interesting, we have a minus 20%, absolutely nuts in the last couple of days. So what's happening right here in NVIDIA? Because at first, I thought, okay, we read the key facts of today about NVIDIA. We're talking about NVIDIA achieved over 100 revenue growth for the fifth straight quarter. So obviously the company is doing it great in terms of fundamentals. And actually, we check the fundamentals right here. You're gonna be able to see exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about like a forecast that has been bet every time. Look at that. We have a reported earnings of 0.68 in the last quarter, and the estimate was a little bit below, and it happened every time. So obviously, when you're buying a stock like this, look at that. This is the perfect scenario, in terms, obviously, this is my opinion, but this is the perfect scenario. Anything can happen, but obviously, it's less risky when you invest in something like this. There are companies that there is actually the opposite, that is going, and the reports are always worse. The revenue is falling into the bottom. So obviously, that's a more dangerous situation. So the key factors here, I would say, is just a market trend. We're talking about that the S&P 500 is not in the best moment right now. If we go to the indices, you can clearly see, for instance, in the S&P, look at the crash that happened yesterday. Not only Nvidia fell to the bottom that particular day, like a minus 10%, but all Texas stocks, all US stocks were red in that particular day. So obviously Nvidia was affected by it. And if you check the Russell 2000, just the same. And you check the Nasdaq, just the same. So everything is happening in all the US indices right now, even in the European market as well. So when you go back to Nvidia, it's not about if it's a good moment or not to buy the stock. It's just that like a market trend. So obviously, if you buy at the bottom, you have less risk. But the problem maybe that we have here with Nvidia is just the last update that we watched. I mean, it was so insane, so crazy, then that normally these corrections normally they tend to be also hard, and you check, for instance, and this is the key thing that I would recommend you to do, guys, to analyze past performance. That way you can predict not the future, but you obviously can predict like better scenarios to buy the stock, or at least not to be there during those moments. And this particular moment, look at what happened back in 2018. We are talking about that the stock fell like more than 57%. That's a lot. And then we have the other one, a more recent one. We're talking about like December 2021. That was like around when it started to go down, like crazy. And that particular one, minus 70%. So obviously, look at the dangerous situations you can get into by buying at the worst possible moment in Nvidia. It's not the same as Apple. It's not the same as Amazon. They can crash, but not that much, because the problem is like Nvidia has a huge growth. I mean, and did you see the data? It's crazy. I mean, the finances in the annual income, look at the 2023. Absolutely nuts. A net income of 30, almost 30 billion. But last year, the previous year was only 4 billion. And that's the problem that maybe we have in Nvidia. We have such volatility that it's difficult to predict what's going to happen next. But obviously, the current trend we're experiencing right now, based on the quarters you're watching, is like, obviously it's good. Maybe it's not as good as the previous one, because the net margin, is a little bit lower. But it's not like a super dangerous situation at this particular moment. But it could be, if the trend continues to go down and the margin and the net margins continues to decrease, we could enter into very dangerous territory. And what happened? These market corrections in Nvidia, they're very hard. So it's obviously you need to pay attention to those things. Also, guys, I would say that we have other indicators that you need to pay attention to. In terms of that, is financially incredible. I mean, look at the debt that we have on the free cash flow. So Nvidia, obviously, it has a very healthy position. So maybe we experience a correction, but they are prepared for that. Look at the free cash flow they have. It's like, it's not a problem for for them cash right now. It's like they have plenty of cash. The net revenue has been insane. All US companies many of them, they are investing in NVIDIA products, NVIDIA services. So obviously, it's very difficult to see their position like reverse like dramatically. It's not the same as NVIDIA, as AMD. I'm sorry, AMD is experiencing a more difficult situation in terms of finances. I mean, the last quarter was like 600 million. We're talking about here like a quarter. Let's take a look at the last quarter. I mean, completely crazy. We're talking about like a net income 16 billion. So obviously the numbers are completely different than AMD, and not to mention Intel Corporation that they are in huge losses, you know. And then when you see like a huge crash in Intel, is because of that, you know. The net income is the key factor. If you see the trends, the performance trends, you know, you can predict exactly what's going to happen next, at least in terms of risk management. You can avoid stocks that you shouldn't invest in especially in those particular moments that we're experiencing right now. We have these rumors that the market is going to crash, unemployment levels are not as good as before, we have a huge inflation still there. So obviously there are different factors right now that are very dangerous. But as I said, you know, Nvidia, I would say, is a good stock. When you know, in terms of fundamentals, they look really really good. It's too soon to tell if it's gonna change. We need more quarters, more financial results to assess a new and upcoming information. But at this point, it's just a market correction, you know. And the thing right here is like we have a huge support level, $90. It's really really strong because they rebounded the price back in August 5th. So maybe it could happen again. I still look at the upturn that we have right here, this upturn channel. Right now, obviously, in terms of you follow that pattern, this upturn channel, buying at this level is also good. So obviously we have different information, but obviously there are different entities as well, because look at that. We need to pay attention to both sides, because if we have like we have the US elections coming, and you need to pay attention to various movements. Right now we have here one bearish movement in Nvidia. They are selling short, and probably if it goes up, they will try to sell short again, and probably at 127, 27, 26, 26, 27, and they will start to sell short again. So if we see a breakout of that area, okay, the crisis is resolved. For instance, let's see a scenario that goes right here, and it goes down and then up. If we see a breakout, probably we will see a retest, and then it will go up. You know, I'm not just making things up. Look at the past performance. Look at the upturn channel over the last couple of years. We're talking about 2 years of data. So obviously, when you are at the top, you know, at the top area of this upturn channel, this is more difficult, and you know there is a lot of risk to buy the stock at that particular point. You can do it, but look at the market corrections you can experience. Even those back in June 2024, they experienced a huge market correction. So you need to wait to bet to buy the stock at better levels. And obviously, I would say there is another indicator I really like. Both indicators, actually, two indicators. We're talking about the RSI and the MACD. And when I use the MACD, I activate the logarithmic scale. I go to the daily chart. I really like long-term plays right here. So when we're talking about buying a stock like Nvidia, actually I'm gonna activate the logarithmic scale right here in the chart. It's better to do that at the bottom areas of the logarithmic scale and the MACD. Obviously in the RSI as well. So when you find these areas to buy, and normally there is like less risk. And there are obviously scenarios like fatal scenarios, for instance, like a huge market crash, as the one seen back in March 2020. That was insane. It could happen, you know, it could happen again. So obviously you need to assess that risk, because if you buy right now and you experience something like this, we're talking about like a minus 70%. That's huge, or even more. But if you buy at the bottom of the area of the MACD, or at the bottom of the RSI, probably I would try to find like the best area to buy in both indicators. You know, for instance, right here back in July, that was a good area, and they started to buy it there. You know, like the smart investors tend to find these spots to buy the stocks, and then hold them for the long term. Look at that. We can see that many times happening. Look at right here, one back in October 2022, then back in January 2023, another time. You know, the RSI didn't reach that area. They had oversold territory, but still, it was a good area from the MACD logarithmic scale. And then again in October 2023, you can clearly see two different entries. So a huge, not a huge market correction, but a market correction, you know, right here on NVIDIA. And one of the last ones in April 2024, again, another good entry in the RSI and the MACD. So when you buy at these areas, you reduce the risk a lot. You know, it's like, it doesn't mean that you can avoid risk. It's impossible. You're buying in the stock market, but buying at these levels, you have less risk than if you buy at the top areas of the RSI or MACD, and obviously at the price as well. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave your comments below. I'm gonna read you, and probably in the next video along with Enrique, we're gonna read all these comments. Thank you very much and have a nice day.